this is things what I have learned in 2016. I tried not to make it particularly developer-y. It was quite developer-y at one point, with loads of functions I'd learned this year. I might put that on the blog. But this is a couple of projects that I've done this year that have changed quite a lot over not only this year but previous years as well. That just sort of it's interesting to see how a site develops and what you can learn from that. So I thought I'd just very quickly go through my review of things what I have learned. Firstly, future you hates past you, which basically means you'll almost certainly revisit your old projects, your old code, your old writing and that kind of thing, and when you do you'll hate yourself. So you should always plan ahead for when you do revisit that stuff. Make it as easy as you can on yourself with lots and lots of notes. I found that with this project, going back to old bits of development I'd done, are absolutely horrific. That I can't believe I was coding like that, and I did some of the things that I did. So yeah, I do hate myself in the past, and I wish I'd annotated what I'd been doing a lot more. What I've also noticed is that even the very small, quick, cheap projects where somebody's paying you, £100 just to do something, just turn it around really, really quickly. If you don't do your proper code formatting and your notation and everything, when somebody else asks you to do something reasonably similar and you have to go back to it and you want to sort of copy a little bit of functionality that you wrote that was kind of handy, you'll never get it if you don't annotate everything. It's worth taking that extra 5-10 minutes to do that. And also something that I've been slowly building up over time, building up is the object-oriented programming is absolutely awesome. These are classes. Writing everything in a way that functions are reusable and that you can, you know where everything is, absolutely brilliant. So take the time to learn OOP and stuff. And I'm still learning it, I'm still getting better at it, but it's really, really good. OOP is object-oriented programming. It's a way of, rather than just writing functions on their own, you build them into a class of functions that reference each other and use each other, and so you're creating objects, you're creating a library of objects that you can reuse. It's kind of difficult to explain in really simple terms.
So,
Chris,
can I jump in?
Yeah, of course.
There's a microphone on that camera, you can put it onto any other microphone, because it's an object. So if there's a piece of code that says with microphone, you can plug it in anywhere, whereas if you've got, that microphone is totally attached to that camera, so you couldn't detach it, you'd have to, once you do this, once another microphone, you have to run the camera. That's okay.
I've done object-oriented programming in Java script, JavaScript, but not really in PHP. Is it hard?
No.
Hard to do in PHP? It's
No.
similar sort of.
Very, very, very similar.
In PHP, there's a lot less documentation on OOP, I noticed. There's a lot harder to find documentation on OOP on PHP.
Yeah, it is harder to find, but if you... Sorry, Chris, jump in.
I would say OOP in JavaScript is a lot different to OOP in PHP, Java, and
That's what I
C#.
thought.
Very different, I would say. Sorry, Cam.
No, that's interesting. In what way would you say it's very different?
Because PHP, C# and Java and some of those are C-based languages, the way that they kind of work is very similar, but JavaScript is very different in that the way that you can mainly scoping things and the way that you're referencing other object functions and the way that you can, with PHP, you can kind of create objects wherever, and as long as you then reference them using the tree, you can then call them. But with JavaScript, it's got to be very much, you're putting functions in quite, if you want to refer to a function lower down, you have to make sure that's referenced within the top, and the whole thing about having your, including your, where you having your where you reference all the different objects and things, you've got to have it. It's quite, I find JavaScript quite strict in that way, whereas with the PHP and other languages, it's not quite so.
Is that kind of why you have to call jQuery first and load that first, and then?
Otherwise, it says, can't find it.
In our voice.
Indeed,
Yeah, so obviously, my JavaScript is not my best, and I could improve my great. If you're starting to learn development, then look into it and make sure you are learning that way. I think learning the correct way. WordPress historically has been very, very bad at that, but is getting better at the core WordPress files using OOP more and being better written in general. Also really awesome, and I've been using these for a while, and sort of again with revisiting old projects and making slow incremental changes to them over time. Version control is really, really useful. So whether you're an SVN user or a Git user, whichever one you favour, they're both really, really useful to have. And to be able to go back to our projects, it's really, really good. Things like Gulp and using SAS and preprocessors and that kind of thing to tighten up your code and to do all your auto prefixing for your style sheets, and to minify your JavaScript, and minify your CSS, that kind of thing. Absolutely brilliant. And maintaining good workflow, just not only using stuff like that, but also having your own processes and keeping them clean and not being a messy idiot. I think good workflow sums up everything there. I think I've learned really. There's a reason all navigation websites looks the same. So one of the sites that has changed a lot, has had a lot of changes to the navigation on the site, and it's gone from a really funky kind of navigation to a very simple one. Another site I've just started to revisit again has quite a funky navigation that we're having some issues with. Pretty and clever funky navigation can confuse users. People get used to a very standard way of things working, and if you start trying to do anything clever with it, they struggle. And pretty and clever navigation can often only work with a limited number of pages, and sites grow over time and they grow into new structures, and if you're stuck with the way that your navigation works, then your website can't grow in the way that it needs to. So this is one example where I've tried to cut out who they are. They basically sell musical equipment stuff, so music stands and things, and they have like a mega menu type thing. So I don't know if you can really see because it's quite small, but we have categories here of types of product, and then within a product, so these are conductor stands. We have different types of product, and when you hover over, so you have to hover over conductor stands to see this list, and when you hover over one of these, you get to see the preview.
The big question is, how does that work on a mobile phone?
It doesn't. This site was built a long time ago, before responsive was sort of taken as given really, and I was charging extra for responsive at the time, and it wasn't factored into the design, so they just never went for it. So responsively, I think what we're doing now is we're trimming out the preview and the image stuff, and it does kind of fit onto a mobile screen, but only just, which is great.
But don't you need pictures?
Sorry?
Don't you need pictures?
Not in the navigation, because people will click through and they'll see it. Or you do it on the page. You have a longer page and show the product images on the page. The problem with this is because it's dependent on you hovering over these bits. Sorry?
With your finger on the move.
On a mobile, yeah, with your finger, or even
What
with a
happens on an
mouse.
iPad?
Sorry?
What happens on an iPad?
Again, not brilliant. Although hover events on an iPad, just a single tap will trigger the hover event, and the second tap on the top will trigger the click through. But the real problem with this is that you have a small hoverable area on these, and it's very easy to say, I want this one, and as you move over that and you try to move your mouse over to the next section, you accidentally go on to something else, and that's horrible, really horrible.
So what's your answer to that for mobile?
On mobile, there are lots of different kind of drop-down type menus that you would have on a mobile. What you generally do is have your hamburger icon, your 3 lines, click on it, and it brings up a list, and then clicking on any that has a sub-item. Usually the sub-items will be indicated with a triangle or something to say there's more below it, and then clicking on that will open up a next section, and you can navigate down to it.
We used to have a great bit of, I thought it was on there, we had in front of a light and you kind of duck or swan or whatever.
Yeah.
Another example of this is, so the original one was borrowed from one of the university sites actually, where there's a I've blanked out the name of this organisation because they didn't give me permission in time to use their stuff. What originally happened was when you hovered over one of the items in the top menu, you get this big sub-menu with 2 columns, which is a nightmare to do in code to try and get there, because you never know, unless you're forcing the user to select what goes in which column. You have to make sure it breaks in the right place and all that kind of stuff. Horrible, horrible thing. And then any that has a sub-item, if you click on it, the whole menu zooms off the screen and the new menu comes onto the screen. It looked beautiful. It looked absolutely beautiful. It took me days to get working. It looked fantastic when it was done. But users couldn't use it. Users didn't like it. Like I say, it's a nightmare to manage. And we've ended up going for a really bog standard hover over and you get the drop downs and you get that kind of hierarchy in there. The other benefit of this over this is that every time you hovered over the menu on this is that it covered up the main kind of big call to action part of the page, whereas on this one it doesn't completely cover it up. Obviously it sort of goes over it a bit, but it doesn't completely get rid of it, so there's always something happening on the page and you can see that there's something dynamic on there. Simon?
Is that a good example, the top one, where testing research with all your customer types?
Yeah, so my dream is to do a job where the client has a budget of, £80,000, £100,000, and they've got a couple of years. not just for the money, but because those are the sorts of projects where you have maybe 2 years to do proper testing, to have somebody in and to do heat map stuff where you're looking at where people are looking on the screen and watching and using the site, and you have lots of different designs that you're testing and trying out. But to be honest, most clients, 99% of clients in the world, are not going to have that kind of money. They're not going to have that kind of budget, and you have to kind of do it on the fly a little bit. You have to, we went with this first design and it looked beautiful, and we were using it, and because we've been using it every day, we knew how that menu worked. Then out in the real world, you find out it doesn't really work, so you have to change it.
The other thing is most clients actually don't know what they want.
No, exactly. You've got to just try out. This was replacing a site that was years old and very out of date and looks horrible. So anything was was an improvement on that.
Interesting, you kept the colour scheme the same, right?
Oh yeah, no. The site has fundamentally not really changed a huge amount. The colour scheme is these are their brand colours. And it was about making iterative changes to a site that is established and has an established identity and brand and look and feel. So, but this is kind of a fairly major technical change and reasonably major visual change, but only to that one element, only to the navigation. The rest of the site has changed, but not as dramatically as that.
On that third level, flyout.
Yep.
Do you do anything in the left-hand sidebar with that menu? So I land on one of those 4 pages.
Yeah.
And I spent ages saying, well, okay, you kind of landed on this page on partnership agreements. Here's all our other partnership pages, which you would have seen in the top there with the drop down.
Yeah.
But you got to scroll to the bottom, and you can't be asked to scroll up. So here's the stuff in the left-hand sidebar that's kind of related.
Some sites we will do, and same designers. Let me see if I can show you an example of that where we've done something where this is quite an interesting navigation on here. So this one works very well on mobile. When you click on it, it opens up across the whole of the page. So if we were to go to the support section. Now this is not perfect. There are things about this that I would improve. I don't like that automatic scroll down, but the client loves it. So this one has got a left navigation with an in this section, but also on the desktop version of it, as you scroll down, after you get to the bottom of there, then you get very visual sort of navigation to other pages within the section as well. So yeah, some sites we would do a left navigation. On the example that I've been showing in the presentation, although they don't do.
Don't want to be rude, but do those pictures help?
Well, very good photographs.
Well, I guess they are quite brilliant photographs. But
Yeah, they do. Because something like that, you're selling, because that is a sinful. There's a lot of competition. You're selling a lifestyle choice to teenagers, and images are, and to parents as well. And images are really, really important to them. Big images as well. Well, no, but because you make very quick visual judgments, and you're 16 and you want to go where all the pretty girls are, and stuff like that. It does make a difference. It really does. Also, the example I just showed you, a lot of their visitors are on tablet and mobile, and those screens with such great DPI resolution on them. That's the word I was looking for. Images look fantastic and they really pop and they really have a lot of visual impact. So yeah, they make a huge difference. Other thing that I've learned this year, don't change anything too quickly. Visitors take a little time to get used to change. So if you launch a new site and within a week you think, oh God, it's not working, let's get rid of it all. That's not the way to do it. If you make a change, you need to give it time to bed in. You need to give your visitors who have been visiting the site a lot time to get used to the change. You personally need to get used to the change, especially if you've had a long, drawn-out development process. Most of the time, I'll love a site that I'm building sort of 5 days after I start building it, 6 months after I start building it, it's about to go live. I absolutely hate the thing, and the design's horrible, and oh God. So, over time your attitudes change to it, so give people time to get used to that change. But then also make sure you're using the right metrics. The way you're measuring your old site, when you then make a change to it and you want to change something else, you've got to make sure you're measuring the right things. So a high bounce rate on a website isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of people say, well, everybody's bouncing off this particular page. Well, are you getting conversions? If you're using Ajax on a site, and they can respond to a call to action on the first page that they go to, whether that's picking up the phone or filling in a contact form or whatever, then a high bounce rate is not a bad thing if people are converting. So don't ignore those kinds of metrics. And a new website might be introducing these new ways that people are interacting with the site. So, give it time to bed in, look at the numbers. Don't compare lots of low quality against a few of high quality. So if you're getting lots and lots of people on a website, but none of them are converting, none of them are the right people for you, then you make some major changes, and those changes end up filtering out all that low quality crap. But you're getting a few more really high quality leads on the site. That's brilliant. So it's not all about absolute numbers all the time. And don't forget seasonal behaviour. When you're making these changes, are there other factors that are contributing to the differences that you're seeing in your metrics? So if you relaunch a site and the visitor numbers go down really quickly, is that because of the changes you've made, or is that something that happens every summer because nobody's looking at your site at that particular time? So the other thing really is, if you're thinking about changing your site at any time, start measuring the metrics as soon as possible before you make any changes, so that you've got something to compare to. So if you're not already gathering data, then do it. A/B testing is actually really, really easy. If you're using Google's tools to do A/B testing, it's a couple of lines of code that you can paste into the header of a page, and it takes all the pain out of it, really, a little bit of setup. So do that kind of stuff, do some A/B testing. Really, really great. Also, Google and your search engine rankings can take weeks or months to reflect the changes that you're making. So don't make a change and then a day later say, well, we're not on the first page of Google yet, why not? And change everything again. You've got to give these changes time to happen, to filter through. So it's about slow, measured, considered changes to sites. So design versus usability. I can't remember the name of the guy, but there was a guy who, was it Scoble? I don't know, but there was a guy early on in the web who was like the guy that was talking about web usability and building websites and everything, and his site was absolutely horrific to look at. The design was terrible, and his argument was always that if the content that you have is useful, then the design doesn't really matter. A really good example of that. And it's becoming less true, but it is still true to some extent. A really good example of that is Amazon. So beyond first impressions, beyond getting people in and the landing page, the design doesn't matter as much as you might think. So if we look at the Amazon homepage, it's still pretty awful as a piece of design, but it's getting better slowly over time. But it's certainly not going to win any design awards. And the homepage is okay. Once you've gone to the homepage, when you start to actually do anything on Amazon, it's horrendous, and it hasn't changed for 15, maybe 20 years. Some aspects of it, it's horrible looking. If you use Amazon Prime Video as well, I mean that is just God. But the thing is, they don't necessarily have to change things because they're working. They're making design decisions based on what people are used to and what converts. And the actual aesthetics of it being really pretty doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter to the users. And then finally, keep an eye on your editors. If you've got a team of people working on a website, keep a close eye on them. Consistency across the website is absolutely key. Don't do what some clients do and bring in lots of different teams of editors and let them do their own thing, or have, somebody in the marketing department's son who thinks he knows a bit about websites come in and he can make some of the changes, and then he gets a bit carried away and changes everything. Create a strategy, stick to it. Nothing happens on the site unless it's in the strategy and part of the strategy. Just because you can doesn't mean you should just create pages willy-nilly and shove them in all over the place. It's great on the web that you can change things very, very quickly, but probably you shouldn't. Just because you can doesn't mean you should delete anything. Deleting stuff can cause dead ends and 404s, and Simon, you've had some issues with deletions, I know, and that can affect SEO and that kind of thing. Think about ways to archive or edit or change content that's on the site. You can obviously delete stuff if you have to, but think about it very, very carefully. And don't be regularly and radically changing the structure of your site. This is all about slow, iterative changes over the course of a year or more, are really the best approach. And that's it. So there we go. That's stuff that I have learned. Any